Hello and welcome to my video where I will show you how to do the skpo and sk2po decrease techniques. These methods allow you to decrease the overall number of stitches on your needles by either 1 or 2. All of the decreases in this video are left leaning, which means that when you look at the front of your work after doing these decreases, they will appear to lean slightly to the left. You will find that they are often paired up on the same row with right-leaning decreases in order to balance them out a bit. An example of a right-leaning decrease is the K2 tug. Now skpo, or sometimes written as skp, stands for slip a stitch, knit a stitch, and then pass slip stitch over. And it's a single decrease, which means it reduces the number of stitches on your needles by 1. Just a quick note before we start, the slip stitches I'm going to do in these decrease techniques will be knitwise, i.e. I will slip the stitches knitwise. If you don't know what that means, I will explain more in a minute. However, I just wanted to note that sometimes people slip the stitches purlwise instead. Now the only difference between slipping the stitch knitwise compared to purlwise is that you will twist the stitch in a slightly different way. It will get the same result, however the appearance might be slightly different. But whichever way you choose to slip your stitches, make sure you stick with that choice, so that your work will be consistent. So let's get started with the skpo. The S stands for slip a stitch, so that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to slip the stitch knitwise. This involves taking your right hand needle and going into the top stitch on the left needle as if to knit it. But instead of knitting it, you simply just take that stitch off the end of the left needle. You then do a simple knit stitch. Please note that the yarn is always at the back behind the needles during this process. Even if you want to slip the stitches purlwise, the yarn will be at the back. You then take your left hand needle point and pick up that stitch that you slipped onto your right hand needle. So you pick up that slip stitch, take it over the knit stitch and off the end of the needle, making sure that the knit stitch remains on the right hand needle. This results in just 1 stitch being on the right hand needle when you started with 2 on the left, making this a single decrease technique. So I'll just show you that quickly again. With the yarn at the back, you slip a stitch knitwise by going into the stitch as if to knit, and then just taking it off the end of the left hand needle. You then knit a stitch and use your left hand needle to pick up the stitch you slipped and take it over the stitch you knit and off the end of the needle. So then you're just left with the stitch that you knit on the right hand needle. And now we'll move on to the sk2po or sk2p as it's sometimes written. Again, it's a left-leaning decrease, but this one is a double decrease, meaning that it reduces the number of stitches on your needles by 2. It stands for slip a stitch, knit 2 stitches together, and then pass the slip stitch over. So to do an sk2po, you first slip a stitch knitwise. So once again, with the yarn at the back, you go into the top stitch on the left-hand needle as if to knit, but instead of knitting, you just take that stitch off the end of the needle. So now it's been transferred to the right hand needle. You then do a K2 tog stitch, which is where you knit 2 stitches together. So you go up through the front of those 2 stitches and cross the right hand needle behind. You then complete the stitch as if it were a normal knit stitch, because all you're doing is knitting those 2 stitches together. So now on your right hand needle you will have a slipped stitch and a K2 tog stitch. Now you're going to use your left hand needle to carry the slipped stitch over the K2 tog stitch and off the end of the needle, like so. Make sure you keep that K2 tog on the right hand needle. So there you go, you've now transferred 1 stitch to the right hand needle when you started with 3 on the left hand needle, therefore making this a double decrease. I hope that this video has been helpful for you, and thank you very much for watching.